Hello guys, and welcome to a Fire Treasure Scramble guide for free-to-play players and I guess other players alike. In this guide I'll be showing you my teams, and I'll also be showing you guys a guide from the Neuromancer Guild. That is slightly outdated, however is still by far the best guide for this round of the Treasure Scramble. But if we start off, as you can see, currently I'm in the top 100, but I expect to drop as we get more teams. But initially we can look at my teams, and now I want to thank Lilith, a shout out to Lilith, because they added the pets in here. So now you can actually show your teams with pets instead of having to click into the actual team editor to show them. Anyways, so looking at my teams, right? For the first team, I'm using a wilder team, well, basically a soulless team, and this is where you would slot, the Badens of this world if you had them. But for me, this is the best team that I could do. Interestingly enough, I'm using Palmer in here. Just basically, it's a full. Oh, how nice. Well, as you can see, I reached the rank of Prince. We just finished our attacks in the Abyssal Expedition. Anyways, yeah, I'm using the Wilder team comp with Solis for this team, and it's probably my weakest team, right? As you can see, 50% win rate. Well, ignoring this team because, well, as I just told you guys, we're playing the Abyssal Expedition, and that means my Ranger tree is actually, I think it's at 0. So this comp using 1, 2, 3 Rangers, well, actually Soroth is a warrior, but basically I don't have any tree backing up Yoren's damage for this comp. So once I can reset my tree back to normal, it will all be better. But yeah, Solis team, pretty self-explanatory using the Fire Breather pet. Another self-explanatory team is the the Belinda team, right? And here I'm using Olna because she gives Belinda so much win rate, and I can use other worse teams before. Basically, I want to hold on to Olna as long as I can before I slot her into another team, because that makes my Belinda team super strong, right? And I'm using obviously the Rock Lizard pet to increase survivability. And then we have the Dimensional team, right? The Rem Emilia team. At some point, Rem is probably going to split up into her own team. Interestingly enough, earlier I used Damia instead of Yennefer, but it turns out for me actually Yennefer is better, even though I have Damia at the same investment. So that's a little bit interesting. Maybe a Damia needs engraving. And then for this team, well, we just ticked over, or for me, I just ticked over to the 4-team stage, and I didn't think about this guy being a ranger and therefore having no tree and being not good. But this is a team that will work once my ranger tree gets better. And even so, like 33%, okay, it's pretty bad, but it's not that, it could be worse. But ideally, this would probably be some sort of a Graveborn Olna combination instead. But those are my teams, right? Real quick, one thing I like to do in these videos is go look at the leaderboard just to see what the top players are doing, right? And I usually look at this Big Mac team. This Big Mac guy, as you can see, interestingly enough, the new Graveborn unit, who I believe will be very strong, guys. He has a very strong kit. I think he will be super meta. He's basically like Rosaline, and I believe even here he might even replace Rosaline. Oh, never mind, Rosaline doesn't run the Belinda team. But yeah, basically he runs Belinda into Dimensionals with Brutus into, this is basically my team, right, but with Awakened Heroes. The rushing team using Thane and Athalia, and then obviously he uses the Matria team that not a lot of people can build. But more interesting than this is actually the guide that I'll show you guys right now. And also make sure to remember to link this thing in the description so you guys can go through it yourself. Now, one thing to note about this guide is that it is outdated. For most competitive guilds or for most guide makers, as we have the Abyssal Expedition going on currently, they're too busy with that. So they can't really make up-to-date guides for the other game modes. So we're using the outdated guides. I believe this one is before Athalia's release. No, never mind, she's actually in here. But it's definitely before Damia, right, and the new Graveborn unit. But even so, like, it's so well done that you can probably still use it and score very well. Now, the guide follows a flowchart state, right, where you have to decide if you have, or not decide, but you have to go out. You have to follow the path that you can follow, right? So if you don't have Belinda, you would follow this column. If you have Belinda but not a Matria, you would follow this column, which is the one that I'm following and which is the one I'll be going through, right? Because for most people, they have a Belinda build because she's the strongest Awakened hero still. So I would assume that this would be the one that is most fitting for most players, but obviously the most free-to-play one would be over here with no Belinda at all. So as we can see, this is a 7-team guide, right? So that means it's nice for these early rounds because most likely you can't build all 7 teams, and that's where you can just pick and choose, right? So for me, I'm making the dimensional team, right? This is actually the exact team I'm running. I believe Damia is better than Yennefer, but even so, my Damia doesn't seem to be outperforming Yennefer, so this is the exact team I'm running, and as you can see here, there's a lot of replacements. Maybe you missed out on the exchange for Rem and Emilia. If so, I feel bad for you, but there are replacements, right? And if it comes to that, in the end you can use Ainz, right? Ainz is a fine hero, but obviously Rem and Emilia are better. For the second team, this is the Belinda team. This is where, because it's the 7-team guides, he does not use Olna in the Belinda team because she's needed elsewhere, but for earlier rounds in the Treasure Scramble, you can definitely just use Olna in here to improve this team a lot. But yeah, no variations in the Belinda team. It's basically, do you have Belinda and do you have her supports or not? For this team, this is the team that I'm using, right? But obviously I can't use Awakened Thane, so I'm using Tamras, and then I'm also using Yorin in here. Interestingly enough, they don't list Yorin as a replacement for Thane, but he is, in my experience. He definitely can replace Thane in the Thane teams. For the 4th team here, this is the this would be the Graveborn Olna team, right? If you have Olna freed up, or maybe you don't use her in the Belinda team, and then you would slot in this team, right? And if you don't have Athalia and you don't have Mulan needs her 9 furniture to work pretty much in any game mode. So if you don't have that, you can just slot in Odin and Pharrell, and that would still be a fine team, right? Using the Vespero pet. Excuse me. And then for the 5th team, this is the Seal team, right? Actually a pretty strong team and fairly free-to-play friendly because it uses a lot of campaign heroes that you probably have built, like Thorin, obviously, Brutus, Flora you might have, unless you exchanged her, but even if you exchanged her, Therin might be a hero you have ascended. And these heroes work at low investment, because basically what this team is trying to do is just stall for the seal to kill everything out. And obviously the higher your seal is, the higher level your seal is, the better this team will do. For team 6 here, you can see this is the Brutus team. Now usually early in the rounds you would slot Brutus into the dimensional teams, as you can see the top players doing. And maybe that becomes the meta in this round as well. We don't know because we haven't reached the 7-team stage. But if you have Brutus built and you want to make a separate Brutus team, this is an option for you guys. And obviously many people don't have Frampton built at high investment, so therefore you can use some of these replacements. For example, Jorn is a fairly cheap replacement, and so is Skarath, to be honest. And then for this team, right, this is this is the Soulless team, right? And this is where I'm using Mishka, right? And with Palmer as well, and actually I'm using a different pet. Maybe I should try out the other pet, but usually Soulless really likes the Fire Breather pet, but it seems like they prioritize Fire Breather pet up here instead of down here, so that's a little bit interesting. But yeah, obviously if you have Soulless built, you can build this team. If you have this guy built, who for the life of me I cannot remember his name, but if you do have him built, he's super strong in this team because Neve just buffs him so much because he's a summoner, and so does Soulless, right, and everyone else. And Knysa and Rook is a super strong hero in this combination because the hero is just so tanky, and it allows the team to stall combat out, allowing Soulless to ult. And when Soulless ults, probably your team is not dying, right? And then we have some interesting options here. If you have Olgath at E60, but I do believe Olgath at E60 is probably not something most people will have. But as you can see here, if you do have him, then even at the 7-team stage, you can slot in Olna with the Belinda team and make the Olna-Belinda comp. That is super strong, and that I'm also currently using. But that's actually it for the guide. Now, oh my god, this is quite obnoxious. Now, one thing I will say is, as the Abyssal Expedition has just ended, right, the guides are going to be coming back more up to date, right? Because the last few guides I've been going through in my Nightmare Corridor video and my Treasure Scramble videos have been out of date because all the guide makers are busy in the Abyssal Expedition. But now that that's done, we can hopefully get some stronger guides and more up-to-date guides. But one thing I will say is go look at your leaderboard. Like the Treasure Scramble leaderboard is so nice to navigate. Actually, it's a bit cringe that you have to follow people to look at them, but usually I just have one player at the top that I follow, and for me that's Big Mac, and then I look at his teams, right, for whenever I don't have a guide that's up to date, because they're obviously using the up-to-date best in slot formations, the top players. So yeah, that's about it. I will be returning with part 2 of this guide, as I usually do, once we hit the 7-team stage, and I'll show you guys what I plan to do for the part of the Treasure Scramble where you need 7 teams, because that's usually where most free-to-play players, myself included, we kind of crumble down the rank, fall down the leaderboard, right? Because yeah, we might be able to make 3, 4, maybe 5 teams, sometimes 6 teams, but very rarely can you make 7 teams as a free-to-play player. And that's where some innovation has to come in. Usually, for me, I try to make a Scarlet comp, but I'll show you guys what I'm doing for my 7th team once we get there. But that's about it. I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and also, I hope you guys had fun in the Abyssal Expedition. I'm kind of happy it's over, because I'm a little tired of my Elder Tree just tanking everywhere in the game modes, right? Because it's so terrible, right? Like warrior and tank being maxed out and not having anything in the 2 carry trees is a little cringe, but it was fun for me anyways. I love the Abyssal Expedition. But that's it for this video. Hope you guys can score higher in the Treasure Scramble and get some of those juicy rewards at the reset. See ya.